Iguodala to Curry, back to Iguodala, up for the layup. Oh, blocked by James. Curry, one-on-one. Irving puts it up. It's good. Kyrie Irving from downtown. The three, steps back, crossover, puts up a three. Rebound James. Second. It's over. It's over. Cleveland is a city of champions once again. The Cavaliers are NBA champions.
Cleveland, this is for you.
What's up, everybody? This is Kevin from the Block the Shot the Stop here with a very special crossover podcast tonight. We have John and Mark here from Big Knick Energy to talk about the New York Knicks along with the Cleveland Cavs. What's up, guys? Thanks for being here. Let's talk some basketball.
Pleasure. How you doing, Kevin?
Doing well, man. I'm getting itchy. Like the All-Star break seems like it's about a month long at this point. Ready to go.
Yeah, it hurts especially because there's nothing else going on. It feels like a real dead time. I'm ready for the Knicks to get back for sure.
Yeah, no, for sure. And there's a reason that we're talking the Knicks. There's a couple of reasons. The Knicks and the Cavs play each other Friday nights. Pretty big matchup. Top 3 teams in the East, and kind of fighting the fight for playoff seeding is about to start here over the next few weeks, as well as there's a decent probability these two teams could run into each other in the playoffs. So I thought it'd be a good time to talk about the two teams and how they might match up with each other. Absolutely.
I do think, even though there's plenty of basketball if we played the season, the top 3 are kind of cementing themselves in place. It really doesn't feel like the Cavs, Celtics, or Knicks are going to move much, or so I hope. I'll even Knicks climbing up, but I definitely don't want them to slide down.
Yeah, I think the top 3 are already decided. I'll even go as to give you your flowers, Kevin, that I think the Cavs probably are the 1 seed, and Knicks and Celtics will be fighting for 2-3.
Yeah, I've said it really depends on what happens these first 10 games or so out of the All-Star break. If the Cavs stumble and the Knicks and/or the Celtics get hot, then I could see either of those teams, kind of chasing them. I think if the Cavs maintain this lead about another 10 games, then I see the Knicks and the Celtics. I don't think either of them need the 1 seed as bad as the Cavs do. Sure. I can see them just kind of taking their foot off the gas and more worried about their individual teams and seeding.
Plus, and I'm sure this will come up a number of times throughout the pod, we all know the Tibbs situation in the Knicks minutes. So definitely don't want them pushing too much further to climb in the standings. I'm good at taking the foot off the gas and just settling into 3 and keeping everyone healthy.
No, for sure. It's so funny. The Cavs and Knicks have about as different of philosophies as they could come when it comes to that. I think the Cavs have only had a player do 37 or more minutes twice this entire season. Wow. And if you all don't have 2 or 3 per game, it's an upset. So
it's if the whole starting 5 doesn't log 40, it's a wild occurrance.
Yeah,
y'all got deeper with the DeAndre Hunter trade. So yeah.
Yeah, no, for sure. And I just want to get into it and I'll start with you all. Where are you all with the Knicks compared to maybe where you thought you would be 55 games into the season?
I won't lie. Y'all's Cavs surprised at least me, myself. I thought the Knicks would be 1 and 2 with the Celtics. I did not see the Cavs being such a runaway 1 seed. But knew they'd be good. Obviously, Cavs have been in the playoffs a couple times the last few years, linking good showing. Have been in that top 4 or 5 or so, and Cavs and Knicks have had a hell of a postseason battle themselves. So not surprised you're in the mix. Surprised how incredible it is. That coaching change really seems to have done some incredible wonders for y'all.
Yeah. What about you, Mark?
I agree with John. I also have to push back a little bit on the Knicks and Cavs in recent years in the postseason. We beat you pretty good.
I was trying to be nice and easy.
I thought we'd be 1 and 2. I can't say I was shocked, but you guys had a historic start to the season. It was awesome to watch as a basketball fan. And this season's pretty much gone par for the course. We're obviously can't wait to get Mitchell Robinson back. Our big defensive center. That's obviously been missing. If you've watched any of the Knicks this year, it's our interior defense has been lacking, to say the least. But, a lot of guys aren't afraid to go up into the paint and get their easy buckets. So I think just getting him back and not even so much Tibbs pushing with more minutes, I think will help the Knicks for the stretch here.
Yeah, I find it very interesting to kind of compare and contrast the Knicks and the Cavs this year, because they're just built extremely differently. Like the Knicks were built like by bringing in established players to play together, where the Cavs took a little bit more of an organic approach over the last 6 years, bringing in like drafting guys or trading for them, acquiring them when they're in their early 20s. And like, what do you think, I guess, what do you think is maybe the biggest strengths of the Knicks, not only for the season, but if we're looking towards a postseason, and what could be their undoing? I'm assuming it might be something to do with minutes and injuries, but what could be their undoing?
The injury bug and the minutes load is kind of what bit us last year. By the end, players were just dropping like flies. But I mean, I think the Knicks are built to be a physical bruiser, even if the defense isn't what it was last year with some of the personnel changes on the roster. And to your point, while there was a lot made about this particular Knicks roster needing to learn to play together at the beginning of the season, and they did, while this team might not have been drafted together and come up in the NBA together, we all know 3 of the guys played 2 to 4 years together at Villanova. So there is that familiarity on that level. And I think we've seen that, throughout the season.
Yeah, that inherent chemistry, I think, is a big plus for us. Again, we could keep talking about our lack of strength in the area of minutes and workload, but Mikal Bridges is a Iron Man. You know what I mean? Yeah. He's the Lou Gehrig of NBA, or Cal Ripken, I should say. So
we're Yankee fans. Stick with Gehrig.
Hey, okay, whatever. I live in Maryland right now, so I kind of had to give some love to the local hero. I think, and plus Josh Hart, the dude, you'd have to like clothesline him and pile drive him for him to get out of a game. Yeah, he just plays through everything.
I am admittedly not a Knicks fan, but they have a lot of players I really like. Going back to even before they were Knicks. I'd love to I'd love to talk about the Cavs, because I always want to talk about the Cavs.
Yeah,
but I also want to hear.
we got to talk about both. Yeah,
I also want to hear your all's opinion, and I'll give you mine. But I know you're both it sounded like I wouldn't say overly surprised, but at least somewhat surprised. You thought the Cavs would be a very good team, but they've turned into a great team in the regular season, right?
Yeah. We probably shouldn't have been that surprised. We saw in Brooklyn what Kenny Atkinson can do at the Little Brothers Next Door. And obviously, I think an underrated angle of the Kenny Atkinson renovation is the wrong word, but it just came out. The Kenny Atkinson kind of rejuvenation, that's what I was going for, is that he coached Jared Allen in Brooklyn before. I don't think that's been talked about as much. So he was coming in with a guy he knew who could anchor that front court for the Cavs, and probably unleash him in ways Bickerstaff couldn't in years prior. So I think that we probably shouldn't have been as surprised. It's just, I think any team outside of the 2015 Warriors and the 98 Bulls going on this kind of a run in the regular season is a surprise,
Yeah. No, for sure. And the biggest surprise with the Cavs is honestly their offensive efficiency. Defensively, they're about where you thought they'd be, towards the bottom of the top 10 as far as defensive efficiency. A lot of things make sense about the team, but offensive efficiency, they're clear 2 points ahead of anyone else. Actually ahead of the Knicks. Knicks are second in offensive efficiency, or offensive rating, I should say. And the Cavs have done it. It's been very much a sum of their parts type team. The Cavs had 3 All-Stars, but all of them, you could say almost their numbers are a little bit less than they could be. It's kind of a contribute for, or, sacrifice for the team kind of thing. Everyone, a lot of it is, I think why it's understandable that everybody thought Boston and Knicks won 2, and frankly, I kind of did too, but you never believe in the young team until they give you a reason to believe, right? Sure. And the Cavs were a team you could see, man, they're coming, they're good, they're very good, but then they just popped. To start the year, they're 15-0, right? Yeah. And the fact that you get so many guys kind of taking the leap or evolving their game, you wouldn't say Donovan Mitchell made a leap this year, but he evolved his game for the betterment of the team. Yeah. Him and Garland are playing the most aggressive defense. Not they're never going to make an all defensive team, but they're playing so much better defense than they did the last couple of years. And I kind of one thing kind of opposite of the Knicks, the Cavs have gotten incredible play from their bench the whole season. And they, kind of led by, we just traded away a couple of guys you alluded to that helped with that. I mean, I was on a podcast earlier today, a Cavs podcast, talking about Ty Jerome might have exceeded expectations more than anyone in the NBA this season.
Seriously, I was looking up his stats before we got on, and I was like, wait, he's averaging 11 a game? How is that possible?
I know.
He just he fit in what they're doing. They have a lot of guys that give them what they need that night to win. And sometimes it's come in and play 12 minutes, make a couple of shots and play great defense. There's been other nights where they've had guys out and Ty Jerome had to play 30 minutes and he scored 20 plus points that night. And so they really have gotten a lot of contributions, but all that's to say, and we'll come back and we'll preview the game Friday, but looking forward to the playoffs, I think it's understandable if people were I want to see it in the playoffs before I totally believe in this Cavs team. But I think if they get the number one seed, the minimum expectation should be the Eastern Conference Finals, and I think the Eastern Conference Finals would be a successful season no matter what happens after that.
For sure.
Yeah, I think there's 3 teams in the East that are saying their season's a failure if they don't make the Eastern Conference Finals.
Right.
So one of them is definitely going to be a failure.
Yeah.
The advantage the Cavs have is that they have a lead on the 1 seed, whereas the Knicks and Celtics are probably going to be playing each other to get to the Eastern Conference Finals.
Let's just hope it's the Celtics.
Yeah.
There's only 2 teams that can play the Eastern Conference Finals.
We definitely all want the Celtics to be home early. I think that goes unsaid.
I'm down. I'm down with that. And it's funny, even though the Cavs have a pretty good lead for the number 1 seed at the trade deadline, they were the ones who kind of made a move to match up with Boston and New York.
Sure.
Right. And I'm curious, you guys have seen DeAndre Hunter play against the Knicks a lot. Have you have any thoughts of him, if he is a tough matchup they got him to guard guys like Mikal
Sure.
Bridges and
I'll do you one better. As you know, through our mutual friend who connected us for this podcast, I went to Wake Forest, so I'm a big ACC basketball fan, and I've been watching DeAndre Hunter since his UVA days. Yeah. I've always been surprised he didn't develop faster and better in Atlanta. There can be a lot said about Atlanta, especially with the Knicks rivalry there. But what's going on, behind closed doors and in team development. So I think it's really great for DeAndre Hunter that he got out and got to Cleveland on a team that is such a contender. I'm nervous about him. I think he's a massive piece for the Cavs bench. I wouldn't be surprised if eventually he replaces Strus in the starting lineup, if that's not something that's already happened. I think that's a big addition for that Cavs team.
Yeah, they needed to get bigger and more athletic on the wing. That was the biggest thing. Was the only player they had who I think is underrated, but that fits that mold, is Dean Wade. Dean Wade's very injury prone, though, which can be tough. Which unfortunately DeAndre Hunter can too, but they kind of act as insurance for one another. Sure. Definitely looking forward to that. And I did want to ask it, as far as matchups. The one matchup I'm really interested in when it comes to the Knicks and the Cavs, because it's such a contrast in styles, is the interior, particularly with Cat coming at Jared Allen and Evan Mobley. These guys all kind of have very different strengths and everything.
I agree. And, we talked earlier about how that Knicks Cavs playoff matchup went a few years ago and how the Cavs were kind of bullied by the Knicks, I believe in 5, right?
Yeah. Mitch was a big part of that.
Yeah.
And that's what I was going to say. Something we've been saying on our podcast almost every episode at length is that whatever happens with Mitchell Robinson is a massive X factor in this Knicks season, especially since the Knicks couldn't really go out and make any kind of deadline moves. They didn't really have the assets to anymore between what they gave up for Bridges and what they've done with free agency and contracts. The Knicks are in a pretty inflexible place now with that second apron after such a massive roster overhaul the last 2 years. The Knicks defense has evolved over the season. Cat's never going to be an A+ defender. Why, if Mitchell Robinson comes back and accepts that role and really buys into what this team can do, this team didn't need to make a trade deadline acquisition because they got one of the top 10 defensive centers in the NBA back, without giving up anything.
Yeah, Mark, what do you think about that as far as, both I guess I know you all really want to need like Mitchell Robinson back as a complement to Cat for certain matchups. Do you think the Cavs are one of those matchups where they may struggle if they don't have Robinson, but Robinson's maybe somebody that could really help them?
Yes, I do think that Robinson would be an X factor, especially against you guys, even the Celtics as well, like with Kristaps, and being able to like how the Celtics deploy Kristaps as like that very big forward that can spread the floor like Cat can, so I think it unlocks something in Cat's game that he is less having to get back as quick, having to get under the rim, having to get into position where that's not his strength, to deal with somebody like Jared Allen, who, is going to be crashing the boards. It's like Cat, for as big as he is, he just, guys just go past him and get the offensive rebound at times. And it's a little baffling, but, it's not his game. So,
and to answer your question specifically, Kevin, I do think that Mitch will play a huge role in any potential Cavs series because,
yes,
as we've been saying, Knicks front court's thinned out. We lost Randall, we lost Hartenstein, various circumstances. And, Mobley and Allen are such an imposing front court, and that's where the Knicks really suffer. I mean, luckily the Knicks have OG Anunoby, who can play bigs and can play maybe not fives, but can at least D up fours. But Mitch would be huge at rim protection. And Precious as well, who plays a lot bigger than his height and is awesome off the bench. He's kind of our all hustle defensive guy off the bench in the front court. But yeah, Mitch, for such a skilled front court as the Cavs have with Mobley and Allen, Mitch will make a huge difference and be massively important to any matchup there.
Yeah, and from a Cavs perspective, it's a very yin and yang matchup, especially if Robinson's not back and healthy, right? One of the biggest reasons the Cavs have worked so well this year, I said coming into the year, I believe in their talent. I don't necessarily believe that they complement each other, those talents, because you got two small guards in the backcourt, you got 2 7-footers in the front court. Can they complement each other? And one of the biggest reasons for their success is Mobley has not only taken a leap and improved, but he's kind of improved in the areas that allows him and Jared Allen to play together, right?
Coexist together, right?
Yeah, exactly. He started being able to shoot threes at the very least enough and well enough for people to respect it. He puts the ball on the floor with so much more confidence and blows by. And he's always been a very good defender, but now he's added the defensive part of his game that he's a lot of times the wing stopper. Like they had him matched up against Jason Tatum when Jason Tatum was going nuts against them. And he actually like slowed Tatum down in the fourth quarter in the game that they beat the Celtics. And so the biggest thing I wonder, and I think for the most part, you alluded to Kenny Atkinson has been a revelation. The guy, he won the first 2 months coach of the year. And if they'd have given it out in October, he probably would have won then too.
Sure.
But, the one, and he's made 9.9 right moves for every 0.1 bad move this year. But the one thing he's done in a few specific games is he's adjusted the rotations to match up against the team, against the other team. I want while the Cavs don't match up perfectly against the Knicks, I want them to play both 7-footers, 35 plus minutes. I want them to play both Garland and Mitchell 35 plus minutes and take advantages of, the Cavs are going to have a lot of mismatches and the Knicks are going to have a lot of mismatches, and who can exploit those more, basically, right?
For sure. No, that was actually something I wanted to ask you. I've tried to watch the Cavs here and there where I can on League Pass, but my schedule's been a bit hectic, so I haven't been able to watch as much as I'd like. You mentioned earlier that Mitchell's made some sacrifices for the team. Yep. We've seen Brunson do the same. His scoring's a bit down. His assists are a bit up. But, so much of I feel like the last 2 years Cavs team was kind of almost hockey line changes where it seemed like it was, I guess, Mitchell and Allen and then Garland and Mobley, and they would switch up the two teams with supporting casts around. What has Atkinson done that has let, these 4 big, massively talented basketball players share the court more, play more as a unit, especially the backcourt of Garland and Mitchell, who in the past both have been such ball dominant guys. Yeah. What are the Cavs doing that kind of incorporates that and makes them flow as a unit so much better?
Yeah. So to answer your question, they still do a little bit of that. They do kind of the middle 12 minutes of each half. They kind of shuffle those guys in and out to where one of them's on the floor, one of them's on the bench. But you are right. They play together. I'd actually start on the other way. Mitchell and Garland are giving such better defensive effort, and they've put enough other strong defenders around them that they can play together more, right? They used to get picked on more. And you can see some teams aren't even revolving their offense around trying to pick on Darius Garland defensively anymore because he's put in that much effort and they put in a scheme to kind of cover for him where they need to. The other thing that they've done it like they've just dropped the egos. Like we said, like I was talking on a show earlier today, like what's your favorite thing of the Cavs season? And I said the vibes. Like, yeah. I mean, they act on if you watch them on the bench, like on the bench and in the locker room and in interviews after the game, you would think it's like a high school team, the way they're joking around with each other, the way they're up and cheering for each other. It like you usually don't see that as much on an NBA. It's more, kind of professional. People are like, just take a break, sitting down when they're on the bench. This team acts like a college team in March Madness almost every night. It's like, it's pretty crazy. And I think that's because people drop the egos and they truly, you don't see, I would say in the past, not only picking on Cavs players, but NBA players, NBA stars don't like not getting their shots, right? And if they have a game where they only get like 9, or if they get 9, 12 shots, score less than 20 points, they might not be super thrilled after a win. That has not been a problem at all on the Cavs this year. I think I think really that's what it comes down to. Everybody's so willing to share the ball. I'm not the biggest advanced stats guy, but like I love the stats secondary assist or hockey assists, and the Cavs have been phenomenal at that. And that is. And I think they've led the league for most of the season in that. And that to me is an indicator of people's willingness to share the ball. Because when you get a hockey assist in basketball, it's something you created the opportunity without getting a stat, right? Like you don't even get the assist stat, let alone the points.
Sure.
So,
good hockey assist for sure.
Sharing is caring. Great Walt Clyde Frazier would say.
Yeah, exactly. So I think that's a lot of it. I think it kind of starts with them. They basically have about the same rating on defense this year, while maybe not having to play two matchups quite as much. They're still been floating between 8 and 11 in rating and defensive efficiency, and then just the way they share the ball is beautiful. And honestly, their offense, it reminds you a lot of the Warriors at the top of their run, where the ball is just zooming around and, everybody eventually gets their stats, but nobody cares about a particular possession. Yeah.
It's funny you say that because that's how we would, watching every Knicks game and post game, they're like a college locker room. Yeah. Like these guys all like each other. You could tell they all play for one another.
There's like running gags in the post-game interviews.
Sure. Yeah.
Like, even the broadcast team is in on it. It's like the whole Knicks organization is like having fun in a way. Yeah. They almost have never in the last 25 years.
Yeah. And I shouldn't say getting rid of, there were certain players, and I'll just say Randall, if he didn't get his shots, there was definitely a little sour note in the locker room that like people probably avoided him or, I
still love you, Julius.
Down.
I might be the only Knicks fan who misses you, but I still miss you, Julius. I'd still make the trade 10 times over again. Don't get me wrong, but yeah.
Oh, that's so funny. Well, you were asking me about Garland Mitchell. It kind of leads me into a question like, how would the Knicks match up with them? Because you would think they're a matchup problem just as far as the Knicks don't naturally have maybe as much speed as the Cavs backcourt has. They have incredible defenders, but they more use kind of their size and athleticism. Like, how do you think the Knicks would match up with the Cavs like all-star backcourt?
I mean, they would probably put Bridges and Hart on them. Yeah. I don't know which one goes on which. I would see Mobley guarding I would see OG guarding Mobley. That kind of rhymes, which is why I mixed it in my head. And then Cat on Jared Allen. I think they try to hide Brunson on Max Strus if he's still in the starting unit. Yeah. That's one of the things that scares me about DeAndre Hunter potentially moving to the starting unit, because then I don't know where you hide Jalen Brunson, because DeAndre Hunter could really expose him with that height matchup, I think. But, it's It's one of the things that makes that matchup so interesting. And this is a little off topic, but to something you said earlier, whereas like nobody buys into the young team until they're really doing it in the postseason. It almost in a scary way reminds me of last year's Oklahoma City Thunder. You know, and now this year they're everyone's pick to win it all. I think if the Cavs have an impressive showing in the postseason like that, I mean, sure, Cavs fans want to win it all this year, but you know, it kind of feels like that kind of same situation.
No, the DeAndre Hunter trade was the balance of trying to win this year and then kind of their window is the next 3 seasons after that. That's how long they have the big 4 signed, DeAndre Hunter signed, and you know, with kind of the cap restrictions now, it kind of limits teams for the most part to a 3-4 year window to try and win. And so the DeAndre Hunter basically like pushed them into starting this year. They have the next 3 to 4 seasons to try and win. And that matches up with their timeline. All their best players are between 23 and 28. Like now's the time to start that window.
For sure. And another thing about the backcourt matchup, and, you know, we've touched on benches, and a name we haven't mentioned that we love to talk about is Deuce McBride. And he's got the speed maybe the rest of the Knicks roster doesn't have in terms of defense. I'm sure he'll come off the bench and be playing on both Garland and Mitchell. And hopefully from our side, be giving them fits on defense. You know?
Yeah, no, for sure. Well, let's talk a little bit about the game Friday night before. I mean, we talked kind of about both teams. We're circling around it and everything. Like, you know, I kind of mentioned it. I really think these first 10 games out of the break are going to determine what happens the rest of the season. Are the Cavs going to stumble, and either the Celtics and or Knicks going to try and make a real push to get into the top, for in the Knicks case, 1 or 2 seed, or so, and the Cavs have a really tough stretch that starts with the Knicks. They play, frankly, 5 or 6 of the top teams.
So that's actually something I was going to ask you, because I didn't have a chance to look at the Cavs schedule. Is this their first game coming out of the break?
No.
It's their second. They play Brooklyn Thursday.
Okay.
We both have back-to-backs.
They're doing the New York thing. And this is just likewise. The Knicks have the Bulls Thursday and then host the Cavs.
Sorry to cut you off.
No.
I've been a little down on the NBA. I know John has heard me say this as far as like scheduling this year. I've noticed a lot more back-to-backs and a lot more like 3-day layoffs, like to try and compensate. And I know a lot of that has to be early in the season with the play-in. Wait, are they calling it the play-in tournament?
Never have.
NBA Cup.
No, the NBA Cup. Sorry.
You're calling it the in-season cup. Someday you'll get the name. I don't think it's ever going to happen.
No, I don't know. I just like right before the All-Star break, we had like 3 days off, played a game, then a couple days All-Star break, and I was like, weird. Anyway, I hate back-to-backs. I hate back-to-backs when both teams aren't on it. If they're both coming off a back-to-back, I'm cool with it.
Learning that Cleveland has a back-to-back does give me a little bit of hope. I mean, Donovan Mitchell is one of those guys at the Garden. New York's home, the Garden's the Mecca, and you always have to worry about him going off there. And, you know, something we've talked about a lot on our podcast is that the Knicks do not play good teams very well. They haven't beat up on the Celtics. The Nuggets, for some reason, they own the Nuggets. Yeah, but every other top team, they handled some of the West, but like the Lakers came into the Garden and handled them with ease. We haven't played the Celtics well yet this year. And we have the Celtics on Sunday after this Friday night Cavs game. So, you know, the Knicks need to win one of the Cavs or Celtics games. I think they're right around 500, maybe a game or 2 below against playoff teams in the NBA this year or something like that. I don't have that up in front of me. So yeah, Friday night's a big matchup, and I'm very nervous going in. I won't lie.
I'm optimistic I'm hoping that the Cavs just have such a great time at Barclays Center and beating up the Nets that they're just so like, oh guys, we're just gonna phone it in today. We 140 burger dropped on the Nets head. Oof.
And maybe the Cavs will rage in the meatpacking district after beating the Nets, and then they'll be hungover on Friday. We can only hope, right?
Karis LeVert will be in Atlanta FaceTiming like, yo, I wish I was still on the team. This is great.
I will say the couple times they played this year, Kenny he's made a point to stick it to the Nets.
Who can blame him?
Yeah, right. I mean, so I wouldn't be surprised to see him leave. He's big on like pulling the starters as soon as the game's even close to decided. I wouldn't see him surprised leaving him in a couple more minutes on Thursday night. But yeah, no, one thing I would look out for in this matchup And it's been a trend this whole season. Like, so the Cavs have this big four, everybody knows, and everybody thinks of Jared Allen as the number 4 of the big four. He was the only one who wasn't an all-star this year. But in the Cavs' biggest matchup, particularly their big matchup is against the other like all-star level centers in the NBA, Jared Allen has been their best or their second best player in almost every single one of these games.
Nice.
Like he had like a 25-20 against Anthony Davis. He outplayed Joker twice this year when they played. Something like this. So for whatever reason, he gets up when he plays these centers at the level of Cat. Cat has been one of the probably 3 best centers in the NBA this year. I wouldn't be surprised, especially as you guys even alluded to, you put your strongest defenders, focus on the backcourt, on Mobley. I wouldn't be surprised to see Jared Allen have like a 20-15 game or something like that on Friday night.
I unfortunately wouldn't either. But to your point, the Knicks have something similar. Obviously Brunson and Cat were our all-stars, our all NBA guys. They get all the headlines. Bridges and OG are both talked about ad nauseum, both because of the trade and the max deal in the offseason and because, they've gotten the name Wingstop as their defensive wing stoppers. Yeah. And there's a lot of hype there. But I think if you ask any Knicks fan who watches games, Josh Hart's the real MVP. And, he's the one filling the stat sheet. He's got 7 triple-doubles on the year. We have a fun Josh Hart triple-double watch segment on our pod. But, yeah, he's playing hard defense. He's filling the gaps everywhere on offense. When he wants to get ahead of steam and take the ball to the hole, whether it's in the half court or on the fast break, it can be dangerous. But he's one of those guys who's very accepting of his role as well. He's not looking for his shot. He knows that he's the glue guy and doing everything else, and he relishes in that.
Yeah, absolutely. And on the flip side, for what I'm worried about for the Cavs for Friday night is they're far and away their best person to guard Brunson is Isaac Okoro, and Isaac Okoro is still hurt. He's been out for almost half the season now. Sure. And they don't have, as much as I've complimented Donovan Mitchell and Darius Garland for their improved defense this year, neither of them are, a defensive stopper on Jalen Brunson by any means. So I worry of everybody in the lineup. Brunson, it's kind of taboo to say you're worried about Brunson having a big game offensively, but yeah. And to your point about Josh Hart, I love, advanced stats, all this stuff about NBA, but then I like to just say, he's a winning player. I love, he is a guy that you win with. I think there's several Cavs. I think Jared Allen is a guy I describe that with. Jared Allen's not the most talented guy, but he makes winning plays all the time.
It will never make sense that the Nets threw him in that trade. It will never, ever. Jared Allen is one of the great steals in NBA trade history.
Yeah.
And Sean Marks is somehow one of the longest tenured general managers in the league.
Yes. Who does? I can tell you guys love to pick at the Nets whenever you get a chance.
Not even that. It's you can't look away from it sometimes. Yeah. It's like they're right next door. So you hear the news and you're like, oh.
They kind of bring it on themselves. I grew up in Jersey. I grew up going to Nets games. I saw Jordan's Last Dance Bulls play against the Nets twice in Jersey. And I loved the New Jersey Nets. But when they moved to Brooklyn, they very specifically looked for a fight with the Knicks. They took out a billboard across the street from Madison Square Garden. There's been other stuff going on. There's a lot of fake Nets fans who were Knicks fans and like to bag it. The move to Brooklyn really kind of brought out a rivalry. And the Nets, had the thing going for a while. They were the talk of the town for their first few years, but ever since things have been put.
And we lived in Brooklyn when they first moved. So
we lived in Brooklyn, but watching the Knicks be good again, the Knicks mania it makes that little few years of the Nets run look like amateur hour. So yeah.
Yeah, no, absolutely. We did get one. We got a few comments here. I was just going to throw one to Mark. Ron Bailey asked, when Mitchell Robinson does come back, do you see him and Cat playing together in certain lineups to try and improve the interior defense, or do you think they more rotate the two?
I think it's going to be a bit of both, but I do think you'll see a lot of them in the in a lineup together. He is supposed to come back end of February, right? That was the report. So again, Mitch, he's been riddled with injuries his whole career, and with NBA teams, they say he's coming back at a certain time, then there's this setback, who knows. But he is expected to be back in March. And I do foresee that. I think it helps open up, I've talked to John, you could elaborate more on this. it allows Cat to be more offensive minded, less, like I said, having to get back on defense, having to worry about the other team's center. He can just kind of hang around on defense.
Marky hates when I use this expression, but we kind of see it as like a poor man's version of what the Timberwolves had last year with Cat and Gobert.
Yeah.
And, you know, I think
that
like Marky
expression.
said, you hate what you literally called me out for using poor man's version of something last
only
week.
because Rudy Gobert isn't that much better than Mitch. He's
He's a lot better than Mitch.
I wouldn't. You're calling Mitch a poor man. I would not. Have you seen his
No,
subs?
it's a comparison thing. It's a comparison thing. But I mean, I think the last I heard about Mitch was March 1st. I'm of the opinion of make it April 1st. Keep him in plastic wrap until then. You know, give him 2 weeks of burn to gel with this team and get his legs back. But let's do whatever it takes to keep Mitch healthy for the playoffs, because that's when it'll matter the most, especially because a lot of these injuries are dealing with. I mean, let's call a spade. Joel Embiid's incredibly dirty play in the playoffs last year and going after Mitch and trying to injure him specifically. And obviously Embiid has bad blood with Cat. Doesn't look like the Sixers are going to be a playoff team. But yeah, there's a lot of ramifications of the Knicks versus Sixers from last year.
Yeah, you have that all across the NBA, right? Where you're trying to determine what to do with injured people. You want to get them back and get them in the flow and everything. But this time of year, it's like, when do you bring them back? Cavs have the same thing. I mean, they're Isaac Okoro and Dean Wade are not like household names, but they're probably the Cavs' two best defenders. They're very, very key rotational guys. Both of them have been the fifth starter at times. Whether that or they come off the bench, they would be in the playoff rotation and playing 25 plus minutes in certain matchups, the Knicks being one of them, just because of their defensive prowess. And so I'm kind of the same way at this point with Dean Wade, Isaac Okoro. Let him sit out until sometime shortly after March Madness. Bring him back, get him a little cardio, and have wrap him in bubble wrap to the playoffs, because that's when the Cavs will need him. Well, guys, this is awesome. Any final thoughts before we get out of here?
No, this was a lot of fun.
This is great.
Thank you.
Best of luck, Kevin, until we play you guys.
Yeah, exactly.
We'll definitely have to do this again before we play each other in the Eastern Conference Finals. So let's set a date in May.
We'll make it a deal. If our two teams match up in the Eastern Conference Finals, we'll do a pod a day or two before and do a little preview together. I
can't wait.
So.
I feel like we all want the Celtics to lose, so instead of saying if, let's say when. You know, I don't want to jinx anything, but let's bag on the Celtics a bit. You know?
We're Knicks and Celtics fans. We should never be this confident.
We're Knicks and Cavs fans, but yes.
Oh, sorry.
No.
Celtics fans allowed here.
All right. Well, John, Mark, thank you. This is awesome. Thank you, everybody, for tuning in. You can find this episode on either one of our feeds. We're both going to put it out either later tonight or first thing tomorrow. So with that, whether you're a Cavs or Knicks fans, everybody have a good night.
Good night.
Thanks. Later, y'all.